On August 4th of 2020, the port of Lebanon's capital faced a devastating event that rendered the country's dire situation even more unacceptable to the Lebanese people. This event is an intersection of economic, political, and environmental disaster. In response to the incompetence of the Lebanese government, dissatisfied citizens took to the streets in hopes of systematic change. According to American University of Beirut's professors Mohammed Ali Shaito and Samar al-Hajj, the port of Beirut experienced one of the worst non-nuclear man-made explosions and the third largest explosion in modern time. This explosion was caused by the 3,000 tons of stored ammonium nitrate. This compound is used in many fertilizers and explosives, but does not readily burn unless it comes into contact with a combustible material. Therefore, the 3,000 tons of ammonium nitrate at the port of Beirut were neglectfully stored. In an investigation of the cause of the explosion, Human Rights Watch's Lana Faki claims that the evidence overwhelmingly shows that the August 2020 explosion in Beirut's port was caused by the actions and omissions of senior Lebanese officials, and that those officials held the ammonium nitrate in unsafe conditions and failed to protect the public. Additionally, Human Rights Watch declares that under domestic law, this could amount to the crime of homicide with probable intent. This evidence, which then became known to the public, would be used to further fuel the Lebanese people's already present animosity towards those in power. In addition to the already deplorable economic status of the country, it is estimated that the blast caused $4.6 billion worth of damage due to the destruction of more than 120 schools, 6 hospitals, 22 healthcare facilities, along with several landmarks and cultural heritage sites. Furthermore, the port serves as a means of exporting and importing goods to and from neighboring countries, generating an estimated $300 million in annual revenue. The destruction of this port further exacerbated the economic crisis. Just before the explosion, Lebanon entered a period of hyperinflation, a term in economics used to define a threshold in the rate of increase in prices of 50% per month or 1,000% per year. Such hyperinflation could be seen following events such as World War I and World War II. The country, as well as international viewers, proceeded to be in mourning for the lives lost and outraged at the consequences of the atrocity. To this day, the country remains devastated by the explosion in multiple different ways. In the following days, people would hold demonstrations, sit-ins, and road blockades, demanding a paradigm shift. On August 8th, 2020, in a violent clash between civilians and the internal security forces, 230 people were injured due to the use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and pump-action pellets into the crowds. In response to the demands of the people, calling for reform and resignations, several government officials stepped down, including Hassan Diab, who resigned from his position as prime minister on August 10th of 2020, who had only held this position since January 21st of the same year. Despite certain officials involved in the port explosion being held accountable, the demonstrations would see a resurgence at the beginning of 2021. The highest peak of social uprising was in March of 2021, totaling 373 different demonstrations across the country as a result of the worsening economic conditions due to the devaluation of the Lebanese pound, hitting a record low. Demonstrations included, but were not limited to, road blockades and burning, tire burnings as the most common forms of protest. The explosion served as a traumatic experience for those who witnessed the atrocity and for those who are dealing with its consequences. To attempt to understand the severe impact of the explosion on an individual basis, Miriam El-Houri El-Marham, PhD at Lebanese American University, and colleagues conducted surveys to assess the resulting mental health status of those affected by the blast. These statistics are a way of verbalizing the anti-government sentiment and the general spirit of the Lebanese people that came directly as a result of the Beirut port explosion. El-Houri Malham conducted an internet-based study 4 months after the event to assess trauma. This included 1,323 Lebanese adult residents and expatriates. From her social experiment, she determined that 75% of participants reported feeling anxious or stressed, 80% admitted to suffering from some sort of financial burden. In addition to this, 90% of participants believed that the quality of life in Lebanon would only get worse, and 86% were convinced that another explosion alike is imminent. Unsurprisingly, El-Houri Malham concluded that their findings are in line with the literature on massive civilian trauma. Taking into consideration the demonstrations that would follow, some of which being violent, the general sentiment of the Lebanese people directly after the explosion was that of unrest and unhappiness with the state of their home. The environmental consequences of the disruption of the ecological systems of Lebanon are among the effects of the Beirut port explosion. Beyond the demolition of buildings around the port, the damage also threatened municipal solid waste management infrastructure. This calls into question the way in which this waste was treated following the explosion. In the past, Lebanon has had problems with the management of solid waste, significant amount of which was piled up in the streets, creating sanitation problems. During this crisis, Lebanese people took to the streets and into the streets of downtown Beirut, demanding a revolution. But despite several demonstrations, no sustainable solution for waste management was offered. The destruction has further exacerbated the country's ability to store and dispose of waste properly. In addition, the combustion of ammonium nitrate released a mushroom cloud and toxic dust composed of ammonia, nitrogen oxides, and asbestos, contributing to the air and water pollution. These particles are all known to be harmful against human beings, as they are all linked to respiratory problems and can all have long-term consequences on the soil and water supply of the region, compounding the effects on health of the disaster. The prevalence of toxic waste in the environment is an immediate threat to the health of the Lebanese population and to nature, the fauna flora of the region. In fact, the United Nations Development Program has established that the cost of cleaning up the environmental damage from the explosion will be over $100 million. The Lebanese Army Command disregarded the nitrogen grade of the contents of the hangar in which the ammonium nitrate was stored, which classified it under local law as material used to manufacture explosives and required Army approval to be imported and inspected. In February 2016, it was found that the nitrogen grade of the ammonium nitrate was 34.7%. Lebanon's weapons and ammunition law states that ammonium nitrate with a nitrogen grade of 33% or more is regarded as another form of gunpowder and explosive material, and as such, its procurement, assembly, trade, and possession in Lebanon is restricted. The existence of all this ammonium nitrate in Lebanon was illegal to begin with. Whether or not this is state negligence or malfeasance, all the consequences, including those to the environment, are very much present and must be dealt with as the health of the Lebanese population continues to be put at risk. Human Rights Watch suggests that solutions to dealing with the effects of the explosion include reducing the environmental impact of reconstruction at all levels of the planning and implementation, including by increasing access to renewable energy, energy efficiency measures, and climate-resilient building designs. They also suggest that they conduct an environmental assessment of impact and aftermath of the August 4th, 2020 explosion, including the effects of chemicals on air, water, and soil quality, required cleanup, and support the capacity building of medical workers to identify signs and symptoms of chemical toxicity, inform people of the risks, and commence cleanup efforts. In May of 2022, a $10 million grant from the World Bank would assist Lebanon in mitigating the environmental and health impacts of the Port of Beirut explosion on neighboring populations and support the development of a strategic plan for greening Beirut's reconstruction. Little can be done about the air pollutants released in the explosion, but the international endeavor of the reduction in greenhouse emissions will aid in tackling this much greater issue through time. Lebanon continues to suffer from hyperinflation and other economic issues, which are greatly affecting the quality of life for its population. By first addressing these issues, the country will be better equipped to adopt more environmentally sustainable practices. Here are my sources. Thank you very much.